Hi,
Hi, Yuki.
how are you?
Great. How are you?
I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity. I'm doing well. What an honor to be able to chat with you.
I'm very glad you're here.
Thanks. You know, I recently watched a video that you talked about parents' anger and frontal lobe cortex development in kids. It was very helpful for my husband and myself.
Great. Oh, I'm so glad. I love getting feedback like that, so I know what are the places to focus that are most helpful for parents. It's
I
great.
well, that was very helpful because you and I know that I've listened to your other talks that you also bring in that science brain development aspect. Um, it just makes it a little concrete and a little easier to grasp. It's not just, especially for my husband, um, it's not just, it's more tangible, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm just gonna go straight to the point before it gets,
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
I'm gonna stop you for a minute because
oh,
people have
sorry.
been coming in. I just want to welcome
Oh, I'm
everybody to the
sorry.
call. No,
Oh,
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
I'm
Go ahead.
delighted to see you, and we'll put you in the queue to be able
Absolutely.
to ask a question.
No
And
problem. Thank you.
and welcome to everybody who has been joining us. This is our May office hours. And if you're new to office hours, if you haven't been with us before, I'm delighted that you're here. And I just want to introduce that Heidi Whipple, who is the admin of our Facebook group, the big one for anyone who's taken the course, so you probably recognize her name. She keeps the queue. So if you want to ask a question, find the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen and put your hand up. And we do have one pre-submitted question from last time that we didn't get a chance to answer. And we may have one other question that we didn't have a chance to answer at our workshop, I think, that we'll do as pre-submitted. So the times when you can't come, when you can't make it, it's always possible to pre-submit a question. We don't always get to them, but we always get to at least one pre-submitted question, and it just depends on how many questions we have at office hours. So, welcome, and raise your hand if you'd like to be in the queue. Um, I should also introduce Diana, who is the admin of the Facebook group for the Success Path. So you've probably also seen her name, and you may have seen Marta's name as well. And they have also all trained with me as coaches. So if you're ever looking for a parenting coach, these are the people who would be first on my list to call. Okay, so I just sorry, I need to open my chat so I can just follow here. Who is in line? I see that Heidi is saying we're going to start with Stephanie today. But Yuki, I know wanted to finish what you were saying, so you want to also be on the list. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Great. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Do you want,
Unmute your.
she can go first. That's okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's okay. I would rather go second, so it's all right.
Okay. Excellent. Go ahead, Yuki.
Thanks. Wait, I've never done this before. Am I asking questions
You're
or am I
asking a
proposing my
question. You're
question?
also
Okay.
allowed to give feedback. Like if there's something in the success path you've noticed that's helpful, as you were just saying, that particular video you watched, that's always really great to hear. And if there's something that you'd like more of, that's also really helpful to hear so that we can, do whatever is most helpful to the members of the success path. But office hours is specifically designed as a place where you can come bring your questions. And
Okay.
mostly I answer them, but sometimes I turn it open to the group because I know there are people either are trained coaches or else other people in the group who have expertise in these areas and or have been through this. So that's also often very helpful.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So one question I have, it's about my 14-year-old middle child, a boy. Um, he is not he emotions are very overwhelming for him. So like he has a hard time receiving um corrections, or like for instance his little younger brother 13 told him, oh, can you please be considerate and turn off the lights and don't slam the bathroom door when I'm sleeping. And then that's too overwhelming for him. Then it became for him, he just covered his ears and was just like blah 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 blah. I don't want to hear anymore. And
Mm.
then, or even when we have family meetings, that I want them to just be safe to share whatever. And he also can't handle it because it's too overwhelming for him. Yeah. And we also try to praise him. Even then, like if I praise him and go, I love you, Andre. And then he'll stick his tongue out like, um, so I guess I'm trying to, my question is, how do I approach him besides like we're just trying to give him positive, like praise him a lot, right? So then like when I correct him, let's say today I said, if you're not being loving to, if you're having a hard time being kind to your brothers, then you need to leave the TV room. Then all of a sudden it's all everybody else's fault, right? I feel like it's hard because it's so overwhelming that it's hard for him to see his part. So anyway, I just want to see if anyone has recommendation of how to nurture him in a way that he will take responsibility but also not be so scared. Or how do I guide him to be okay, to go through these emotions? That makes
I
sense.
love that the way you said that is you want him to take responsibility.
Hmm.
And I heard you say so that he won't be so scared. Because
Hmm.
scared is what you're describing. It's a nervous system that is overwhelmed. You use the word overwhelmed. He is overwhelmed by the feelings he has when his brother says, hey, could you be more quiet and not wake me up? That's a perfectly reasonable way. And the way you said it, I don't know if the 13-year-old said it as
He did, yeah.
kindly as you did. Okay. So obviously the way he said it is also not an attack. It's totally a
Hmm.
reasonable thing to say. And yet your 14-year-old's response is, he can't handle it. And it's what we think of as a rude response, right? Like, we're not going to take that in. And then even when you try to connect with him, he stuck his tongue out, right? So he is feeling bad about himself. Clearly, he, feels bad about himself that he woke his brother up, and he feels criticized, even though he wasn't in that moment criticized. And it keeps him from, and then when you try to connect, he doesn't trust it. He didn't think that was
Hmm.
real connection, right?
Hmm.
He felt manipulated, and that's why he stuck his tongue out, right?
Hmm.
So I love that you're
Hmm.
aware that he's getting
Hmm.
overwhelmed and he's getting scared, right?
Hmm.
So it sounds to me like the question is, in general, how do you strengthen your relationship with him so that he
Hmm.
feels more, um, so he's less on the defensive, right? Like, what
Hmm.
would make someone respond to something like that was a courteous request as if they're under attack? Well, anybody have any ideas why someone might respond that way? Go ahead, Marta.
Well, my first thought was that he
You're
sounds
not
like,
very loud, I'm hearing. Yeah, there you go.
how's that?
Yeah, good.
My first thought was just that he sounds like a highly sensitive
Hmm.
person, young adult. Um, and I know with my highly sensitive kids, you do sometimes have to approach things from a different angle, not so direct, oftentimes, because even like you said, compliments or praise can feel too overwhelming to them emotionally. So I think anytime you can try to go at it from a different angle and not so head on, I've noticed has really helped my two highly sensitive children.
Go ahead, Diana.
Yeah, I was going to add, often when kids, including my own, they won't take responsibility for something that they've done, and myself included, unless we first feel validated in what we felt. Like we're good people, they're good people, they were having a hard time, they did something unskillful that hurt somebody else, but they first want some empathy from someone else about their own goodness, right? Like it's really hard for any one of us to take responsibility for unskillful behavior when we haven't first felt heard, empathized with, accepted as a good person who did something that maybe harmed somebody else. And it's a separate thing. Like our identity and our goodness is still seen apart from the thing we did. And I find that really powerful to first empathize with our child. And as long as they need us to, before we move into step 2, which is, I wonder how your sibling felt about that. Those are some thoughts.
I appreciate both of what you shared. The only thing is, we don't even have a chance because it's instant guard, right? But do you think it's something that I just need to keep loving him, like, doing his interests, going to whatever, doing whatever he likes and just keep praising him? I, I guess sometimes I'm afraid if I am being, if there's such a thing, being too kind. Am I sending the wrong message? That I'm, like, is it something that maybe he'll outgrow, that he won't be as scared to um, talk about his feelings?
So it's not always about talking about
Mhm. Yeah.
feelings, especially for a 14-year-old boy, right? And I don't think it's just a matter of outgrowing. I do think there's some work for you to do that will support him. So when, like the incident that you're describing, when he does this, to acknowledge what's happening, to say, you really don't want to hear this from your brother. That makes you feel pretty bad. I hear that. Just start with where he is and say to his brother, you might have to, in the same way that when, you have a 3-year-old on the playground and they've done something and they can't apologize and you do the apology for them and model it, you step in and you say to his sibling, his brother, who's the 13-year-old, you say, it sounds like you really want your brother to not wake you up when you're sleeping with the noise of the door and the light. Um, Thanks for asking in such a nice way, in such a considerate way. I know you weren't trying to make him feel bad, and I see he feels bad. He really didn't want to wake you up. What would your, how would your 14-year-old react at this point? Would this be just too much for him?
I think I tried to voice it out, but he had already shut down. Um, so, but then I think, well, and then a few weeks later, I just asked him, I know that you really hate it when we talk about these things and that it's very overwhelming for you. How can we make it easy? Like, how can we make it in a way that's not too overwhelming? So then we're able to sit down now, like what Marta said, kind of go around it, still do what we do, but didn't make it, we didn't call it like everybody can bring complaints.
Mhm.
So he doesn't think it's a complaint.
I think that's great. And I also think that even in the moment, you said he had already shut down. Even in the moment when he shut down, you can acknowledge it's hard. You feel like your brother is criticizing you and he asks that. Yeah, I understand, sweetheart. It can feel like a lot. And I think your brother loves you and just wants to be able to sleep without being awake, and he's not criticizing you. Let's everybody take a deep breath. Let's everybody get recentered. And we can talk about this later. We'll work this out. I mean, part of what he needs is safety in that moment. So to know that you've got it, that you're not getting upset, that you're able to not feel overwhelmed in the moment, you're able to say what's going on, to bring it into the light, put it on the table, and also to say we don't have to work this out right now, but we will work it out. And you run the interference with the 13-year-old, and then the 13-year-old can go off and do whatever, and your 14-year-old needs to calm down, and he might need your support to calm down at that moment, not by talking, probably. Their 14-year-old boys calm down in all kinds of ways, but probably not by talking most of the time. And but once he's calmer to say, that was hard before when your brother brought that up, huh? And what would he say if you did that? When his brother's not in the room.
Here we go.
Okay. All right. That's an acknowledgement. He goes, okay. And you say, it can be hard to hear something like that because I know the last thing you would have thought about was that you were waking him up. You weren't trying to wake him up. And what would he say to that?
Probably just another
Mhm. Right. Right.
because it's like it's something that's talked about all the time. But then, okay, going back to the family meeting. So then, is that not fair then for the other two boys to not have a chance to share because he just took over? I'm
Oh,
sorry, I don't mean
you're
to
saying
make
if
you.
this happened at a family meeting, you're saying? If
Yeah,
this
yeah,
happened
yeah.
at a family meeting, it is a lot harder. So,
Mhm.
family meetings are a really great time to help kids express what they need really
Mhm.
from you as the
Mhm.
parents, and
Oh,
sometimes with each other. But sibling stuff at family meetings is a little dicey sometimes. I actually think
mhm.
that sibling stuff is better dealt with mostly outside of family meetings.
Individual.
So
Okay.
that I would often table it, defer it, say something like, you know, so this is so important you brought this up because of course you deserve to be
Mhm.
able to sleep without being awakened. And it's hard for your brother when he feels criticized, and because the last thing he wanted was to wake you up. He didn't intend to. So I think your brother heard you and we
Mm,
can
mm,
work
mm,
it out
mm.
later. But
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
think this is something we should talk more about right now because I think it's too much. It's true that when you
Mhm.
have one highly sensitive kid, the
Mm.
others may well feel like they're getting preferential treatment, right? That kid isn't. But it sounds like your 13-year-old is very mature and probably would hear it. And it's not like a surprise to them that their brother is highly sensitive, right? Hmm. I also want to just go back to what Diana said for 1 minute before we wrap up, which is she said, you might have to do that a lot longer than you'd think, or something like that. That when you're acknowledging their perspective, they can't think about the other person's perspective, the sibling's perspective. A highly sensitive kid or a kid who's carrying a lot of stuff in their backpack, they have to hear it a lot before they're able to even see the other person's perspective or to think about responsibility, right? So I think that's an important thing for us to remember is that it's often much more than we think.
I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad you came. Stephanie, you there?
Yes, I am here. I even have my camera on.
All right. Well, we're glad to see your face. Hello.
Yes. We spoke a few weeks ago about some family dynamics, and you probably don't remember because you're so busy and you see so many faces. So I'll give you like the quick version here. Because my husband and I have different parenting styles that we clash. And you gave me some ideas to talk to him about things. And it was really helpful when you said that I would look like he'd think of me as the enemy. And it's like, yeah, okay, got to keep reminding myself of that I don't want to come across as the enemy. I want us to parent and have the same goal, um, kind of thing with kids, right? But it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. So I have like two things. I have two things I want to ask you about because I want to follow up with how to kind of talk about things with my husband about this, and also about I have a 15-year-old, so it's kind of an 11-year-old. Mostly it's them that have these interactions, and then
Was
my husband will
was
over.
your husband with the video game?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I
yeah,
do.
but it's not like we talked about that stuff, and that was great. Um, but I find that he will overreact, and he's just overly critical about little things that I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to put it in words where it's like, well, I'm worried about my 15-year-old developing like poor self-confidence because he's being overly criticized. And and I know that he feels that his younger brother is preferred, or like, oh, he's younger, let him go first. And it's like, why are you doing that? Like I could totally see why he would feel that way. Um, and so I know there's like a resentment there, but it's more so when my husband is handling things. Like I've tried to be aware of this stuff and put it in perspective, but yeah, so the overly critical things is what's really bothering me. And my husband doesn't even see himself as being overly critical or having unrealistic expectations. We talked a little bit after the video game, we talked about messes. And it's like, yeah, clean up your mess. But he's more extreme than that. He will get upset. They have to avoid messes. Messes are just like set him off. And it's like, you're about to make a mess. And like, or something like, don't eat that there or something like that. And don't use the sprayer on the sink. It splashes and makes a mess and he'll yell about it. And it's like, don't slam drawers in the kitchen. And they're just closing them normally. And there's like a lot of this repeated critical comments that I tried to talk to him about it. And I'm saying how like the kids are still young and they're learning, and he got upset with that comment that of course he knows they're still developing. It's like, okay, trying to get him to be a bit more empathetic, but I didn't quite say it in that way. Um, and so it just ended badly that it's like he's saying that I'm right and he's wrong, and I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. And I think we should just end this, and because it's not really going the way I wanted anymore. Um, and he said it was
A
being
minute.
aggressive.
Who said end the
I
end
wanted
the
to just end the
discussion?
conversation. I
Uh-huh.
just wanted, because I asked him he said like to tell me how you feel about it. So I thought I'd try that. He vented for a very long time about how our son is bad. It sounded like, and how he needs to listen better and he needs to change. And I just thought, oh my goodness, it just felt so uncomfortable. And like he doesn't even like him or something like that. Like that's how it comes across. And if I think it feels that way, then I'm worried like my son's feeling that. Like that's really hard. And I don't know how to talk to my son about it so that he can actually develop some self-confidence and not feel criticized so much. But I just don't know what to say to him, and I don't know what to say to my husband. And yeah,
So, Stephanie, have you and your husband ever been to any kind of counseling?
we did. It went not very good. There was like one thing that was good was that we should parent alone and not interfere with the other one if they
Right,
are parenting. That was the
right.
only thing we got out of it, and then we stopped doing it um, because it wasn't quite understood my situation. I feel like I'm not explaining it, or I think of it later how to explain it. Um, One thing that counselors always say is that mealtime is fantastic and you should always have family meals together. And so my husband heard that as like, yes, we're doing a fantastic job because we have meal times together all the time. But that is when he like will berate them. And meal times were like the worst time of my day because we're forced to stay in the same position and we can't escape this this critical kind of thing. Um, and I wasn't able to express that that's how it is. And so he
So I
continues to
think
feel like he's doing great. My husband thinks he's just needs to do it this way. And
I'm hearing you say that it is hard to talk to your husband about these things. And I understand from what you said why it's hard to. It's not like he's open to having these conversations or to hearing what you're saying. It sounds also like it's really an important conversation to have, that he actually has some belief systems or perspectives or opinions about your son that are not positive and that are coming out in these ways of really being hypercritical. picking at your son.
And it's not just him, it's just in general,
Okay.
anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm imagining that your husband is a good guy. You did marry him, and that he himself probably had a parent who treated him that way. So to him, it's normal. It doesn't mean it might even mean he's being a good father, to him that he's on top of things, he's paying attention, he's not letting them get away with making messes, right?
Hmm.
So, so it's hard to have those conversations. And you did try this last few weeks and it didn't work so well. You can, and we can coach you to go back and try some more. And I think that's a good idea, not a bad idea.
Okay.
And I think that you're trying to intervene in a situation that is loaded and difficult with a kid who's at an age where you don't want to be driving him away.
Hmm.
And so time is of the essence by that time when you have a son who's 15 who's feeling like his father doesn't approve of him, right?
Hmm.
And so it is a lot easier to have the conversations you want to have with your husband if you have a counselor there. For you to be, now you still have to be really brave. You still have to say, you know what? I know everyone always says it's a great idea to have meal times. And in fact, meal times at our house, I don't think are so good for anybody. And here's my experience of them. That takes a lot of courage to do, but it's a lot easier to do when you have a counselor there with you. So their job, their job is to do this, and they're practiced at helping create the safety so that they can turn to your husband and say, how was it to hear Stephanie say that? And your husband could say, I feel attacked. I feel, whereas if the counselor isn't there, he's just going to attack you back, right? So I'm going to advise that this is a time. And by the way, we have lots of questions about working things out with a partner in parenting because it's a really hard thing to do. And every single person who's listening right now, either alive or later, has had times with their partner or sometimes ex-partner, where things have gotten really hard. So it's not an unusual thing for that to happen. The reason that I'm saying now's the time to actually reach out to a counselor is what I just said. It's because of your son,
Okay.
right? So I just think that your husband needs some support to see the effect he's having. He doesn't realize the effect he's having. And it's hard to hear that from your partner. It'll be hard for him to hear that from you, but easier if you have somebody else to provide who's able to provide safety in the room and can help him express the hurt that he feels when he feels like that he feels attacked by it and blindsided because he thought he was doing fine, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And in terms of talking to your son, I I do not subscribe to the idea that parents always need to be on the same page. I do subscribe to the idea we have to always be respectful of the partner. But I think it is completely fine to say to your son, that was pretty hard when dad said XYZ at dinner or whatever. Um, was that hard for you to hear?
He'll come to me and he'll talk to me about things. And that's exactly what I do is I just say, I'm sorry it's so hard that you're having like you're not liking this and that it's just so difficult. And but then he wants me to talk to dad about it.
Of course, of
And
course.
it's like I get that. Yeah.
And you don't. I mean, you do on your own, but you don't say to him, "Oh yeah, I'll talk to your dad." You could say, "Sounds like you have something really important to say to your dad, and I think it would mean a lot. It would be really important for your dad to hear it. Do you want my help to say it to your dad? Do you want me to be with you while you say this to your dad?" Now, what would happen with your 15-year-old? Would he be able to do that?
He would want to. Yeah, I'll even tell him how he's said something very clearly and I will give him like props on it that he stayed calm and he was very clear and concise on how he expressed his feelings. Um, and he'll do that. And he even would want me there because it seems like a triangular situation where he'll get me in on it, or my husband will bring me in on it, and then it's like, oh darn it, now I'm in the middle. Um, but I'd rather he just did it on his own. But what happens is, my husband will just say, no, you're wrong. Like,
Huh.
specifically, he'll say, no, you're wrong. He'll interrupt Alex if he tries to explain it again or say his point of view. He'll say, no, I know how it is. And he'll want Alex to admit like guilt, admit and my husband, this is what other else bothers everyone, like my son and myself, that my husband will say, you're lying to my son. He
Mm.
tries to say his perspective and he's being completely respectful. Um, he'll say, no, you're lying. It's like, so yes, there's
And
the,
that puts you in a really tough position.
yeah.
And so do you feel like you can say anything at that point?
I say that you have a different perspective than like, well, and I'm not in it when that's happening. And I haven't had that kind of conversation with my husband about like that. To me, that's like a name calling thing. And I just try to, if I'm kind of earshot, it's like, name calling in the house or something like that. But it's like it's like my husband wants him to agree or admit, and it's like, who wants to admit wrongdoing, especially a 15-year-old? Like, who's going to be that much, like, who, even adults don't want to admit they're wrong, like we just heard earlier. No one wants to do that. So it's like, save face, just like, don't demand that he admits it or anything. And he doesn't want to listen to Alex's perspective that it might be different than his. And then he'll just start interrupting him if he tries more. And he can be pretty forceful about it too. If Alex decides that he's done with it, he'll go to his room. His dad will follow him. And
Mm.
yeah, and then get upset that his door is locked.
Yeah.
And
So when you try to have a conversation with your husband, I said I said earlier in our conversation, we can coach you to go back and have more conversation with him.
yeah,
It's a good thing, but I'm not sure how far you'll get. So when you try to have more conversation with your husband privately, then if you said to him, you know, when you just insisted you were right and you didn't listen to him, I wonder, I wonder what his takeaway is. I wonder, and if he says, well, he has to learn lessons, he has to, I was right.
yeah,
And
that's
and if you said then, I wonder if it helps your relationship be closer or if it sort of sabotages it, tears it apart, tears it down, weakens it. What would your husband say to that?
yeah. I've mentioned that too, that like relationships and that kind of like along those lines. And he just thought, well, that's ridiculous. That that has nothing to do with anything. And I'm like, wow, that's the number one. He says that I'm trying to change the subject. And we're not talking about that. We're talking about this one thing. And it's like, well, what's the one thing? Or that the kids listen. It's not even that he did something dangerous, which would be like a rule I would back up, like, no, it's that he's not listening to him, like my husband say stop or something like that. He didn't listen is his number one topic.
So, if I were a family therapist, I would love to have your son and your husband in the room together and help your son be able to express himself. You're not trained as a family therapist, and you can't really do that, right? But there are family therapists who would welcome that opportunity to support your son. The good news is your son has you to listen to him, but it also would be really helpful to him to be able to grow into his own voice. And I don't know if your husband would hear that, even that way of looking at it, reframing it from listening to your husband to, he's 15. He needs to grow into his own voice. He needs to be able to express himself and have us hear.
Hmm.
I don't know whether your husband would, think of that like mentoring him into becoming a man as opposed to, putting him in his place as a child, right? Do you think your husband
Yeah.
would be open to that idea?
I don't know. Because like we've in our conversations about the whole general idea, he'll he'll give these little speeches about how discussions should work and everyone should listen to each other. And it's like, yeah, I agree. It's like he's saying it in a coaxing way that we should listen to him more because he's saying it because he doesn't feel like he's being listened to. And it's like, so that's a big challenge. Yeah.
So one thing that is useful that you'll hear if you listen to the audios that I've made on partners is it's useful for you to be able to acknowledge him, to be able to say, wow, so when he's holding forth to your son, to say, so I'm hearing you say it's really important to you that the kids not make a mess with the sprayer at the sink, that really bothers you. I hear that. And do you guys hear that too? Yeah, you both hear it? Okay, to the boys, And then, and, I mean, and he will probably jump in and say, yeah, and it's really important because X, Y, Z, and blah, 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 blah. And you can say, yeah, I get it. Yeah. And the other question, I guess, is who cleans up the mess? Like if they made a mess and then they cleaned it up, would that be a terrible thing?
Oh, here we go. He would not show them how to clean it up. If they tried to clean it up, he would redo it. And so they learned very quickly that what's the point? Dad's just going to do it anyway. Basically, they wouldn't do it right. Yeah.
So that's why he doesn't want, and that could be
And
another
then
thing
he's
to acknowledge
complaining.
for him. You
And
can
then he's
acknowledge that and you feel, and I know you feel like when we make a mess with the sprayer that you always end up being the cleanup crew, right? Is that right, honey? I mean, I think acknowledging him will really help him. He's right now really trying hard to be heard, it sounds like, and he doesn't feel like anyone's listening.
okay.
So this is another one of those times where he will need to hear that a lot more than you think. And maybe if he gets enough of it, there you can then start to say, and I wonder if you heard what our son said about the reason he thought it was a good idea to use the sprayer. No, he was wrong. He probably will say that, but you could at least, um, you know, uh, I think if he feels heard, you open the door that he might be willing to listen. I do think that finding someone for the two of you to talk to is super important, and it might be that you actually want to choose a family therapist. Many couples therapists are just with couples; they don't do family work. But I think family work with a 15-year-old is super important, actually,
Hmm.
at least in this kind of an instance. So I wish I had a magic wand for you.
Me too.
I do, and I would welcome any input from anybody else on this, but I do think that one of your keys is to be there for your son, which you're already doing, and another is to help your husband feel heard, and to then in be the voice acknowledging everyone in the situation, him and the boys, so that so that it's not just the conflict between them, but you're acknowledging everybody.
Okay. I hope he doesn't I think I'm being condescending or something when I
That
point
is
it
the danger. That is the danger. And so that's why you actually aren't seen in a condescending way. You're actually saying, yeah, I hear how important it is to you that they not make a mess. And I guess I hear why, which is that you think you're going to be the one to clean it up. You usually are. I appreciate that. I mean, that's not condescending. Would he think that was condescending?
out. He might still. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody else go ahead, Diana?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this condescending piece. I've seen that definitely many times. Adults that haven't been empathized with, when somebody begins empathizing with them, they feel like it's patronizing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't talk to me like a child.
Right.
I'm not your child. You're not my parent, right? And it's like it's an interesting experience for them because this must be a new thing. They maybe not have not had anybody empathize with them as a child, right? And now it's like it's when you pour love in, all the things that feel unlovable surface up. And so, maybe going a little slower, right, with that empathy, but that's probably exactly what it needs. It's just it like burns because it's like, oh, like that really like makes me want to like, I'm angry because it's making me want to cry actually, right? As an adult, and I'm not allowed to cry. So I'll just stay angry and it's your fault. Right. So it's this whole like psychological thing. But I was also going to add, I think you're doing an amazing job and just keeping in mind that like your 15-year-old and all of our kids, they adapt to the environment in childhood, like to retain attachment with that caregiver. And his attachment to his father is different than his attachment to you. Each child has a separate attachment with each caregiver. And it sounds like with you, he has a secure attachment. And that's all they need is one caregiver that they have a secure attachment with. And he's, at this point, if nothing changes, he's going to grow up with avoidant attachment, maybe with his father, and just keep him at a distance because what the father does hurts. And you know what? That's an appropriate response when somebody's hurting you. And then where do you go when you're hurt? You turn to the secure sources. And we learn throughout life, like, this is how we survive. Like, if it burns every time you touch it, don't touch it. So like, don't touch it. Right. And then the father will feel the effects of that. I think over time, he'll begin to see his son turning to other people for connection. Cause right now he doesn't see it. He doesn't feel it. But I think as your son gets older, he'll have other male role models around him, like maybe uncles or other men. And he'll see his son connecting and trusting and listening and taking advice from other people and maybe not his advice. And he'll start to wonder. And once our kids get older, like, you can't keep yelling at a 20-year-old. I mean, you can, but they're not going to call you. They're not going to want to hang out with you. And then it's up to you as an adult to like reflect on how have you been showing up in this relationship. And so I think that's going to be kind of I think as long as your son has you. And also, like, one other quick thing is like, when you're talking to your son, saying like, you're not the one creating this. These are patterns that we as adults come into parenting with. Your dad's not a bad guy. He's just doing the best he can with what he has. And can you imagine him as a little boy? What kind of parenting did he have to have for him to show up like this with you guys? And it's not that your grandparents were bad people either. Like, think about the generations, and it really de-shames, because kids often, when parents are harsh and like whatever, like unskillful, kids blame themselves. I must be doing something wrong, right? Which is the whole self-esteem piece you're worried about. And I think separating that for your son, because when we're in it, when we're the victim of that, we're like, well, it must be me. But when somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm an observer of this, and this part's yours, this part's not yours. And over, like, untangling the identity from the shame of being responsible for somebody else's upset, I think can be really helpful. But it's a really hard situation. So, and obviously not that uncommon, really, because here we are breaking these generational patterns, doing peaceful parenting, all of us. And so you're not an abnormality in that dynamic. Many households struggle with that. And we're all showing up every day, trying to do the best we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. That was beautiful. And I would add, since we're talking about peaceful parenting, that anything you can do, Stephanie, to get your husband to listen to anything with you, talk about it, just these are ideas that are probably not things that he thinks about. And so if you can in any way help him to start to take in these ideas, like if you listen to one of our audios that you think, he might actually respond to this, maybe. Thing that seems like a way in for him.
Yeah, I've tried to send him some some articles, but I don't think he's read them.
I have heard
Oh,
from dads that the easiest way for them is to hear audios that they listen to, like on their way to work.
yeah,
They're
he's not
not
like that.
interested.
He's
He's not.
yeah, he'd rather just read something. So I tried to send him some stuff, but I think he's just avoiding it because I gave it to him. So yeah.
Well, he may also feel like you're trying to change him.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, he's not
I,
wrong. So,
yeah.
so I think also affirming that that it's really important to him to be a good dad. That's why he cares so much about the messes, etc. Right? I think affirming that that it's important to him, that he loves his sons, and that you think that you just maybe even to do it for you. Would he do it for you? Have a conversation. If you said, would you do something for me that's really important to me? Would you read this article so we can talk about it? What would his
Hmm,
response?
maybe.
So at least he
Yeah.
doesn't feel as
Yeah, like here, this is for you.
yeah, you're bad and wrong here, now change, right?
Yeah.
Let us know what happens.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
So
Elizabeth is next.
thanks, Heidi.
Hi there. So nice to meet you.
And you?
I'm just turning my volume up a little bit. Okay. So my question, I have two children. I have an 11-year-old son and I have a 15-month-old son. So I have a tween and I have a toddler, which is a lot of fun, but it's the 11-year-old that I'm going to ask about today. So my question has to do with not feeling like I want to do things with or for the 11-year-old when he's had a lot of dysregulation or upset and things are very difficult. And I'm looking to sort of strike a balance between, and I'm sure other people here will understand and empathize, like respecting my own boundaries and my own feelings or needing to take a break, and also not doing things that are damaging the relationship or are going to make a difficult time worse. So, just to give a little context, he doesn't have any diagnosis and he doesn't really seem to fit the profile of anything, but I would say he's very sensitive. He's very strong willed. He's kind of easily dysregulated. Um, I followed peaceful parenting since he was a toddler, and we have a pretty good connected relationship. He's never been punished, and he's very good at repair. He goes to a small private school that lets out very early because their philosophy is that summer should be 3 months. And this is actually not great for my son because he loves school. He's very upset when it's over, and he's really dysregulated for a while when school is done. So school finished about a week or so ago, and we've had a really harder time than usual. And when he's dysregulated, what it usually looks like is a lot of kind of verbal ranting, rude talking, and difficulty, that can go on for a while. And, what I'm struggling with is, after this has gone on for a while and maybe there's like, been a couple interventions to try to like pull him out of it, or I've just flat out said like, this is feeling difficult. Can we shift or, whatever it might mean. That, when it keeps going on and it keeps going on, if, I'm folding laundry to help him pack for a trip, or I'm making him a snack, or maybe we're going to go to something together, or, before if I was the one to take him to school, I just don't feel like I want to do it. And I'm kind of struggling with when I'm going to say like, I'm just not going to do this. This is just, feeling difficult. And when, maybe I sort of need to hang in there and like the message that this is sending, and I think I'm trying to be careful too that, there is sometimes the natural consequence of like, if this is so unpleasant and so difficult, then someone may not want to, be in close proximity. And with something that feels more like a punishment or pushing him away.
Yeah. So first of all, we have all felt that way sometimes.
I thought this would be a common experience.
This child is just being so difficult, has been so, I have felt like I'm the recipient of all of their anger.
Correct. And I tend to be.
Yeah. And we are. We are the recipient of their anger because we're the safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And they need us to be able to withstand it and not actually take it in, because the truth is the anger has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with you. I mean, in this case, the anger is about his dysregulation from his loss. He's had a huge loss of the school.
Mm-hmm.
He needs structure. He's missing that structure.
Mm-hmm.
All of the benefits and rewards that come to him from being at school
Mhm.
not there. There's a toddler at home and that's being rubbed in his face if he has to be home with a toddler now, right?
Mhm.
So there's all this stuff going on that isn't about you.
Mhm. And it's seldom about me, whatever it
Exactly.
is.
Exactly. And even when they think it's about us and everything's our fault, it's not actually about us. It's about their big tangled up
Right.
feelings.
Right.
And the work for us is to not take it on, not take
Mhm.
those, to be able to let their anger be expressed and to acknowledge the struggle that they're in without, um, it's hard to not feel, I was going to say without feeling attacked. We're going to sometimes feel attacked. The work is to notice, oh, I'm feeling attacked, but actually it's not about me. I'm just a
Mhm.
I'm not taking that in. I'm deflecting it. I'm going to show up. I'm going to convert all of this feeling to love for my child who needs me right
Mhm.
now to show up in an understanding way. And that's the work. That is the hardest thing in the world to do,
Mhm.
to take a situation of not love and to bring love into it. And that
Mhm.
is actually what choose love means. Choose love means you're in this place where it feels like you're under attack.
Mhm.
You stop and you take the breath and you say, I can show up for my kid. I'm not actually now, if your kid is doing something that you said hold boundaries, if your kid is doing something like screaming in your face and spitting in your face, I'm not saying that choosing love means you stand there and let yourself be spit at. Okay.
Mhm.
I am saying that when we can safely do this, they can be
Mhm.
as angry as they want, and they can be ranting, and they can even say, "And it's all your fault." And
Mhm.
we can hold on to our center
Mhm.
and choose to show up with love and say, "Oh, sweetie, it's so hard. You love that school. This isn't what you wanted. It seems so
Mhm.
unfair you don't get to go."
Mhm.
And sometimes that works like a magic wand, and they're like, yeah, and then they cry, and then it's all done. And sometimes, especially when they're 11,
Mhm.
not going to happen, right?
Mhm.
Especially when they're 11, it's going to be more like, you don't understand. It's even worse than you think. And then they have to tell you more about how awful it is, right?
Mhm.
And it's easy to think, oh, I'm just feeding the flames here. But
Mhm.
actually, if you can speak to the anguish underneath the anger,
Mhm.
right? The tears and fears under the anger, they sometimes will move into, even if your 11-year-old is not going to start sobbing, he will probably move into a more vulnerable place where he says, and you don't even understand. Some kids, they at least get blah, 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 and I don't get that. And
Yeah.
and I'm not even going to see this kid that I like. I mean,
And he does sometimes, but he also, I would say about equally, will go to anger. Actually, interestingly, kind of like the previous question asker's husband, he's quick to feel like condescended to, or to like I really have to make sure that like the feeling is very genuine, because he's very
your
quick
opinion.
to like sort of imitate back, like, oh, you're so sorry, it's so hard, or like something like that, like
Yeah.
to turn it back,
I think,
like to fend it off.
empathy can be um, misinterpreted
It's tricky with him, and
and
he's like very
depends on the
tuned
kid.
in to like just how genuine, or whether there is a little bit of like, oh yeah, yeah, I know, you're so sorry, you're not gonna.
Right, right. And I think the more we can, I mean, you can't phone it in. We actually do
Right.
have to show up with
Right.
the emotional um, generosity
Mm-hmm.
that says, yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
I really do get how hard this is for you.
Mm-hmm.
When we can do that, it helps them to move through it. So if you imagine doing that, does that change your feelings about making lunch for him?
It does. It does. Right. Like if I kind of picture that general state, and actually really whatever I decided specifically out of that state would probably also come across differently. Even if I said, I really I'm not feeling like I can do this or I want to do this, it would be coming out of a less, reactive place and more out of, like, but I'm just a human being. And I've heard if it was, if there was more of a general stance of like emotional generosity and being less, rocked by it, take it in less. Yeah.
The emotional generosity thing is part of how we help kids be allowed to be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because most kids who are highly sensitive get a message in childhood that they're too much,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're too
Mm-hmm.
much, they're overreacting,
Mm-hmm.
and they it's really wounding actually to have that feeling. And so if we as parents, sometimes they are too much and we have to take care of ourselves too. I don't mean that we can somehow be superhuman. We're human too.
Or maybe there's never a time to say like, I need to take a break or I just can't, or
I think it's completely fine to say,
right.
um, sweetheart, I really want to hear more about how upsetting about why this is so upsetting for you or whatever. I want to hear more about this. And I want to be able to listen fully. And I think I've reached all I can really take in right now. Can I give you a big hug and we can make a date and talk later?
Right. I like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else, you're not the only person with a sensitive child in this space. If anybody else has, Heidi, I see you nodding. Go ahead.
Uh, Um, I think it's so hard to stay calm when you have all this dysregulation coming at you for so long, and it takes so much more empathy than you want. And sometimes that empathy and trying to get to the point where the kid even feels felt by us, it's so hard to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of mantras that I think are just super helpful are reminding myself he's not giving me a hard time, he's having a hard time. He's not giving me a hard time. He's having a hard time. Kids do well when they can. And to just keep repeating and repeating and repeating that to yourself. I can tell you when I started using those mantras, I wasn't 100% sure I believed them. And I kept on using them and kept on using them. I'm like, okay, I'm going to test this out. And is this true? And it always helps me respond better. It always it rings true. I wholeheartedly believe that those mantras are actually true. He's not giving me a hard time. He's having a hard time. And then the other thing is because he's having such a hard time so often right now, you talked about wondering about boundaries and trying to care for yourself through this too. And I think for the parent point of view, it's having to be a little bit more proactive to make sure that you're checking in with yourself throughout the day and finding ways to get your needs met so that you're not just at the end of your rope every time this dysregulation.
So that I'm really resourced.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. To find a way to show up in a much more resourced way. I mean, personally, I've had to modify my expectations, kind of simplify things in my house, in my schedule, in my commitments. There's lots of different things you can do to try and provide that resourcing for
that
you.
actually is a really good point when you're saying that, because it also has been like a lot of daily routines that he usually, cheerfully participates in, helping to fold laundry or watching his brother after dinner while somebody else cleans up or whatever, have been more difficult, and there's been more pushback. And it may also be that, I need to have, at least a little bit of grace or understanding. I kind of connected the dots there, but that there's been a real, and he is actually usually, especially with the toddler and being the 11-year-old, like very helpful and does a lot of things, around the household. So even if he did a little less, it would by no means be like, he doesn't contribute or, but that's a really good point. Like just considering overall expectations that we may just need to.
Yeah. You both have nervous systems that, you're both carrying a stress load each day. And there's all sorts of different things that your nervous system is fielding with and dealing with each day. And so looking at, your body, your bucket and his bucket, and, what are all the different stressors we're dealing with today? And, maybe you can modify some of the stressors on you and simplify or change some things in your life, set aside some time proactively, to connect with your son early in the day each day would help with his nervous system. Set aside some time each day for you that you can connect with your own needs and your nervous system in your body. But then also for him, what's weighing on his nervous system. And I do find during these times of big transition for my sensitive kids, they need a little bit less on their nervous system because the change is such a big stress on their nervous
Like
system.
dialing
And
things
so,
down. Yeah.
yeah. And so sometimes, like sure, maybe he can do something for himself, or maybe I normally expect this of him, but his nervous system is under so much stress right now with the change that if I can just, set aside that expectation for now, or maybe I do it without even asking him, or maybe I ask him and he's having a really hard time and I say, you know what, I can see you're having a really hard time today. I'll just clear your dishes from the table with you.
Right.
You can go on with that, like showing them that grace and that compassion to kind of meet them where they're at. And that's okay too. We don't have to make them do everything by themselves that they can do by themselves. We can incorporate that loving awareness of where they are in the moment and where we are, because again, your child's doing the best that he can right now. And this is really hard. And you're doing the best you can caring for him too. And then when we can kind of think proactively, what does he need today? What do I need today? Maybe there's some structure to add to your summer days that can help him a little bit, know what to look forward to, that he'll have this activity with you then, or he'll have his screen time at this time, and we'll do something fun at this time, and we'll have a snack at this time or something. Just all those things kind of in combination can really help these sensitive kids kind of get through these big transition times.
And some of those I have thought of, like we have like up special time and, we have sort of a structure, but the general kind of like lowering the temperature and maybe even considering like, expectations, or just, offering, more often, or like you said, without asking to like do things or take things over. I think that could be really powerful with this kid. And again, right, that's the family culture we're looking to create. And we all appreciate it when a partner does that for us and says, yeah, usually you do the dishes, but I'm going to do that. And I'll put the baby to bed, and, we're so grateful. And he will do that too. He will sometimes, come to me and say like, oh, I'm going to do, your job too. So that I think would be really powerful. Yeah. I like that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Heidi. Your son actually sounds like a terrific kid.
He is in a lot of ways, and he's really a joy. And I think I just really, again, like going into the teen years and the preteen years, and looking to kind of shift and stay really connected, like going into this new phase. And I feel lucky that, I still have an 11-year-old that wants to snuggle in bed and read books with me at night, and, thinks of me as a fun person to do a lot of different things with, and wants special time whenever I can offer it. So yeah. Thanks.
That's a testament to the kind of parenting you've been doing for a long time. It's great.
We'll see, but thanks.
Okay, moving on. Christy, you're next. Would you unmute yourself?
Hi. Okay, so I have a 10-year-old son, and we started peaceful parenting just about 8 months ago. And I'm just having a really hard time, like, getting him to empty his emotional backpack. He does seem like he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder since we started doing this. And mostly, like, the hard feelings all start bubbling up. Like when I set a limit, like a predetermined limit, like on screen time or something. And he'll start to tantrum, but he has a really hard time like allowing himself to cry. And I can tell that the feelings are just making him very uncomfortable. And so I try and make a safe space for that and empathize. And he'll just say, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, and like won't really let me talk. And then he's kind of started to see me like the enemy, I feel like, because I'm bringing out these hard feelings in him. And like he almost seems like a little bit resentful, like when I try and do this with him. And he's started name calling, like he tells me that I'm mean and I'm stupid and I deserve it because I'm being a bad mom. And I'm just hoping you can maybe help me understand like what's going on for him to see me as the enemy, and how I can help him like empty his emotional backpack and pivot so he accepts that like I'm on his side. We are doing like special time and roughhousing every day, and getting the laughter going. And sometimes when I set the limit, it still is just really hard.
Yeah. So, first of all, welcome to Peaceful Parenting. How great that you're doing roughhousing and special time with him. And I'm sure that that's making a difference for him. And how great that you're wanting him to share his emotional life with you and to work through any past stuff that he's been carrying. When kids are not ready to cry, to show us the emotional stuff they've been carrying, it doesn't help. What helps is to create safety. That's what helps. So I would say to focus less on the need for him to do that and more on creating safety. You said that you try to make it safe for him to have his feelings. Any kind of safety is what's important. The reason you asked why he would see you as the enemy, I don't think he sees you as the enemy. I think what's happening is that he's feeling all of those feelings that he's stuffed come up, and that's scary. And when he's scared, he goes in on the offense because that's the best way to protect ourselves is to go on the offense, right? So he goes on the offense and he goes on the attack. So the more you can strengthen the relationship, which is what you're doing with the special time and the roughhousing, and the more you can do it with empathy, sort of 24/7 empathy, right? Like, I'm just going through the preventive maintenance things, right? Like, right, preventive maintenance includes, of course, roughhousing and special time, and then empathizing. And just if he feels understood on an ongoing basis, just, yeah, I guess this really isn't what you wanted to have happen. Or I know it's hard to turn off the screen. Anything that any empathy you can offer, even if at the time he doesn't seem very open to it. Well, if you really thought it was hard, you'd let me keep playing. I hear you. And it's my job to be the mom. And he might still go on the attack. He might say, you're so mean, right? Because you're enforcing that limit. And again, our job is that's not really about us. It's not really true about who we are, what we're doing with them. And they're allowed to think we're mean. And we don't have to even answer that. It's like, I know you really wish that I wouldn't insist you turn the screen off. And this is when we're going to turn it off. We agreed that's what we're going to do. Screens are the limit that kids have the hardest time with and they get the most dysregulated from, right? Because they're in the middle of this constant feedback loop of dopamine and norepinephrine, and they're like, this is so great. And then all of a sudden it's gone. And screens are very hard for humans to turn off. I mean, that's the business model of all screens, right? So it makes sense that he would have a big reaction, especially to screens. But the more you can just empathize, again, the more you're creating safety.
So how would I respond, or what would I do when he's just like, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet? I don't want to listen to the empathy. Like, how do I like get through?
I would absolutely stop talking when he's saying be quiet, be quiet. Whatever you're doing is not helping create safety.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he's feeling he may need to, can you give us an example?
Yeah, so he doesn't really agree with the screen time limits we have, but he's one of those kids where he just gets so dysregulated. If he has more than 30 minutes, like he's just dysregulated for like the whole rest of the day. So we do like 30 minutes of gaming on the weekends, and then he has extra time for like TV and like educational stuff, but his friends are all getting a lot more and they can tolerate it, so he just doesn't think it's fair. So well, I'll sit down with him at the end and I'll kind of try to build that bridge to turning off the screen, and then the time's over and it automatically shuts off, and I'll be there for him, and he'll just kind of throw his tantrum, and then I'll just say, hey, I know this is really hard. You were really having fun on that game. And he'll just be like, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. And like, when you let me talk, I'm just like, I don't know how to help you if I can't talk.
I think sometimes talking is not what's needed because what's needed at this moment is safety.
Mhm.
You could keep it very short. You can say, I know it's so disappointing. You could just do that, you know. But even that, he probably would just tell you to shut up, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think at that point you don't express it that way. I think later you say, I know it's hard to turn it off. I know it was hard earlier. Earlier, you would say that, right? You know, it was hard earlier when you had to turn it off. But maybe at that point there isn't anything that you say while he's having his tantrum. You're right there with a hug when he's ready. That's it, right?
So just be there, just giving him his space and just listening, basically.
Well, when you say he's having a tantrum, he using words?
Mm, yeah, he uses words and he throws stuff a lot. So we've got to the point where he's only allowed to throw pillows and blankets and stuffies. And he's good about that now. He doesn't throw anything else anymore. So that's been a win. But yeah, he'll start throwing that stuff at me and I'll try and make it playful and you start to trying to get him laughing. But yeah, he'll just tell me how he doesn't think it's fair and he doesn't agree with our agreement and like he doesn't and then I'm a bad mom and like all that stuff. That's what he's saying.
So in the moment of dysregulation, telling you you're a bad mom is irrelevant, right? It's like, of course, he's going to show you how upset he is. Does anybody
Mhm.
else want to speak to this? Go ahead, Marta.
Hi, Christy. I have a 12-year-old son, so somewhat close in age to yours. But one thing I have found with my, again, highly sensitive son too is that, and Dr. Laura, maybe you can correct me, but sometimes they really need to feel that we feel them in a more elevated way. I've noticed with my kids, and if I'm calm, if I'm so much calmer than they are, that
Mhm.
doesn't feel safe either because it feels like there's this disconnect. How could I possibly understand this very important thing to them when I'm obviously so calm about it? And if I understood, I wouldn't be so calm about this. So I've found that although I don't necessarily agree or I don't actually feel as angry about the situation as they do, if I can raise my energy level to match theirs a little bit more, to mirror them a little bit more, to mirror their intensity, or to try to just communicate like I get it. I get you're upset about this. And eh, I think for them it feels like yeah, you do get it. So I don't know. That's what's worked for me. I was reading somewhere and I can't remember where exactly it was, but that sometimes that kind of mirroring um, can be helpful just in that again just in that we're really communicating, um, we're really empathizing, right? Like we are kind of feeling some of what they're feeling. And I don't know, for me I found that that's been really helpful in our house.
I mean, if we think about it just from our perspective, if you were really upset about something and you were trying to tell your friend or your partner about it, and they were just completely calm about it, you would think you wouldn't feel understood, would you?
Mm-mm. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Perfect. I will try that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy. Raul, are you there? Can you unmute yourself? Raul?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Laura. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I have bad reception here for whatever reason. My question is, what are your thoughts? So I was raised kind of with the peaceful parent. My mom was kind of a single mom and very, in a sense, peaceful. My wife, kind of the opposite. So we have kind of that difference that you alluded to earlier, as far as parenting styles. But we have a lot of issues over punishment. I'll give you an example. My 6-year-old um, he did something at school that he wasn't supposed to, like throwing something in the bathroom and whatnot. And then he lied about it. So he was supposed to go to a birthday party that evening, and I try to understand, where he was coming from, and kind of, and I was, I guess more, I felt like he had some remorse, and I thought, okay, it's okay to go to the birthday party. And then my wife is like, absolutely not. Like, there needs to be repercussions. Like, he can't do stuff like this. And so this is like a recurring theme in our household where, like, if, the kids do something inappropriate, then, if I say, yeah, they can, oh, we're going to go to the baseball game. And she's like, no, like, what are you thinking? Like, this is like, they get away with it. So I'm just curious, like what your thoughts on that and how you would frame that, and discussing that with my wife. That was my first question.
Mm. I think it's a, I think at that moment with the birthday party, you probably, if the two partners are having a disagreement about it, it's very hard to work that out, right? And to figure out, well, what should we do? And I don't think there's a right answer. It sort of depends on what the infraction was and also the the importance of the party, right? But I think probably it's a signal. It's like you're going to have to give in to your partner at that point and say, okay, no party, but we need to get on the same page with this so that we're having the same kind of reaction when our child does something about how they're going to learn. And I think it's a bigger discussion then, right? It's not about like, well, when they do something wrong, then we take something away from them, right? Which is conventional parenting. It's more like, how can we help them, first of all, do as few things wrong as possible, right? We don't, meaning when kids' needs are met, then they don't have unmet needs driving bad behavior, quote unquote, bad behavior. But some kids are going to end up, especially when stuff happens at school and someone dares them to do something and they end up doing it. There are going to be things that kids are going to do that are a problem. And then the question is, how are kids going to learn from that? What's the best way? And I think the best way is to start by empathizing with them as they tell you the story about what happened, why they did it, and then to consider with them, so you did this because XYZ, so and so dared you, or I don't know what his situation was, the 6-year-old, but you did this for this reason. Um, I wonder if there's anything else you could have done at that moment. Yeah, you're right. You could have done that other thing. Wonder what would have happened then. This is how children develop good judgment, is to have those kinds of discussions. And I think when you have a relationship with a child where you're having those kinds of discussions, you can see that they're learning from that. And the removal of a privilege is sort of it's almost extraneous. It's like it has nothing to do with the ball game or the birthday party doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this thing that they did that they're now wishing they hadn't done. That in fact, as they've spoken with you, they've come up with, well, how are they going to make things better from what they did? Are they going to, go to the person who they had the problem with and apologize to them? Are they going to write a letter to their teacher about what they're sorry that about what happened at school? Um, what are they going to do that is going to make a repair for what it is they did? And that's how kids learn, right? Is these discussions and the repairs. So if that's happening, then everybody in your home is feeling good about that, like that learning. It's clear that the child has actually made some sort of breakthrough and is making some sort of change, and it would just be irrelevant just to not go ahead with your plan to go to the game with your kids, for instance. I think your wife probably hasn't ever seen that process happen though. So to her, the way you keep there from being a repeat infraction is you make sure they don't get those privileges, right? Does this all sound right to you?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds right.
So
Yeah.
if I were you, I would start to talk with your wife about how kids learn and how you could help them to learn and to internalize the good judgment that you want them to exhibit. And if you can get her to participate in those things with you, then um, I think she'll see that her children are changing. And what usually happens with punishment is when people start to parent this way, it sort of drops by the wayside. First of all, kids are better behaved. And secondly, parents learn other ways to help them be better behaved. I was interviewed on the morning show once, and they had a woman on who, they had two other women on, one of whom spanked her kids, and one of whom, I'm trying to remember how she had gotten on there, but the host said to her, well, what do you do for discipline? And she had honestly, clearly was taken aback, like she didn't really realize how she'd stopped punishing and disciplining, but she didn't actually see a need for it anymore. It was just such a funny moment to watch her in front of this TV audience come to this realization. So we don't want to have your wife think that she can't guide her children. We do want to do what's most effective to guide them. And that's, in fact, the research is pretty clear, not the whole cycle of punishment that is part of conventional parenting. Is that
can I ask you a kind of, yeah, that makes sense. Can I ask you kind of a follow-up question? Kind of similar theme. Like for example, in the mornings, because we haven't had especially I haven't had a lot of time to connect. We just woke up, and so we haven't had silly time and playtime and all that stuff, and we're just kind of more focused on, okay, we got to get out the door and we got to get to school. The usual struggles in the morning. What do you do when even though you empathize, like, oh wow, like this is, you want to keep playing, and you empathize and you even do some silly stuff, but there's still a lot of degree of willful, like basically willful, like disobedience, like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to keep playing. Because I mean, I've heard you talk about like removing the child from the situation, but like for me, they're 6 and 7 and they're getting pretty heavy, so I can't really move them physically. So where mom will resort to, like, okay, well, if you don't do this, then this afternoon you're not going to get to play with this toy, or whatever kind of consequence, and then that works. But I don't want to do that. But so how do you move a child that age kind of through these things in the morning when you haven't had limited time to empathy and not a lot of time yet to connect? How do you approach that?
that's why preventive maintenance is so important. Because if you don't do the preventive maintenance, if you haven't done the special time and the roughhousing the night before or whatever, then next morning they're not as connected, right? And you're right. You in the morning you're trying to just get them out the door or whatever you need to do. You can still give the instruction so that you're connecting. You can still say, you can still be instructing them to get their shoes on from a place of connection. Like, you can be playing games with the shoe. If you don't have that, if you haven't had your coffee yet and you don't, you can't really do that at that moment, which is understandable. You can also just be, I know the last thing you want is to get ready for school. I got it. And we got to do it. Let's do it. They will do it based on the strength of their relationship with you. Children have their own agendas, but the most important thing for them ultimately is that connection with you. So if you said didn't have time in the morning to connect, but if you've been doing preventive maintenance and you give them a hug and you hand them the shoes, and they're going to do it not because they want to, they're going to want to willfully disobey and go play with their Legos, but they're going to do it because you're asking them to do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? Do you recognize that has
Yeah.
happened before?
Yeah, no, I think like a lot of other people, like, my son is very strong-willed, has his own agenda. I don't know, he wakes up with a lot of energy and thinks, it's time to play, and he loves school too, but he doesn't have the executive functioning to, like, plan out, okay, I only have 30 minutes to do this activity and I got to move on. And, it's like it repeats every morning. So
And you're not alone in this. This is, of course, true for many kids. And that's why the routine is so important in the morning. That, like, we get up, we do this, we do that. We're not playing, actually. He gets up ready to go to play, but in fact, we need to keep him on the schedule of moving toward getting out of the house rather than being able, this is, why screens are such a bad idea, right? Because they derail all of the schedule. But even other kinds of playing, kids will, of course, be very happy to do other kinds of playing. If we can keep them on the schedule, then it's a lot easier than constantly pulling them back from the toys. Does anybody else have any ideas about this? And we do, by the way, Roll, I don't know if you've seen it, but there is an article about mornings on the website that could be helpful. But does anybody else have anything or any tips about this? Go ahead, Heidi.
So these kids that have such a hard time with the executive function, and some of them are so distractible, especially first thing in the morning. A couple of things that we've done at our house, we've had like a picture chart, and I just used clip art I found online to make my own chart simply on the computer. But, a little picture with the word underneath of each thing they have to do, even if they can read, like the picture helps cue a different part of their brain. So it's helpful to have a picture. And then they can mark it off with a crayon when they've done the thing in the morning. That helped us for years and years with a variety of age of kids. That would help your son at that age too. And then like simplifying the morning routine. I ended up getting this past year, I have one son who really struggles with that, getting things done in the morning. So we bought like extra toothbrushes. He has a toothbrush in each bathroom. So it doesn't matter where he is. We can still send him, I have a picture on his bedroom door. Here's the 3 things you need to do in your bedroom before you leave your bedroom in the morning. Then go to the bathroom. Well, half the time he comes downstairs without even visiting the bathroom before he gets down the stairs. Because he's just so distracted in the morning. It's so hard for him to follow that routine. Well, guess what? We have the same picture in the bathroom of what he needs to do. And we have a separate deodorant and a separate toothbrush in the bathroom downstairs as well as upstairs. So we can do it in there and kind of keep on refocusing them to that chart. What's next on your chart? What do you need to do on your chart? But there's a lot of different ways to support that executive function side. Some kids need like a visual timer where they can see how much time they have left. And so kind of those types of supports, maybe it's laying out clothes the night before. There's lots of things you can do to kind of make the morning a little bit easier in that way.
Yeah, these kinds of tools are so helpful. That's great. Go ahead, Marta.
Just one quick thing. Raul, I know that your kids are now 6 and 7. You can't physically move them, but even with my 8-year-old daughter, I will sometimes just go up to her and be like, I know, I'm tired too, but come on. And I'll take her hand and walk her to the toilet and pull down her pants and sit her on the toilet. And she's 8. So I mean, you can still physically guide them even at that age. And she's even said to me, you have to drag me to the bathroom. And I'm like, I can't drag you, sweetheart. So she'll come but there's still some physical prodding that can be done without you like having to actually physically take them somewhere new, I have found.
And there's always just getting in their face in a friendly way, right? You're being connecting and fun and affirming, and you're not letting them. You're between them and the toy. You're not letting them continue to play, and then they sort of your force of I was going to say will, but it's more like they know you're the boss, and they will, if they can, go ahead and play with their toys. And if you continue to stay positive and stay in their face, and that's not what's going to happen right now, they will end up doing what you're asking, sort of like what Marta's saying. Roll, good luck. And
Yeah, thanks
also,
everybody.
and also, I think your question about your wife, again, if you can share some of what you're learning through the course with her, that could actually simplify things a lot at your house, at your home.
I had a quick comment if I can make about that, like how just a cool idea. Yes, like talking to the partner directly can be helpful if they're receptive, but another way is like to talk to your kids about peaceful parenting in the presence, or like with maybe open doors to the other spaces. It's like, oh, this is so cool. Let me tell you guys about this cool research. Did you know, like, actually kids' brains like develop smarter when you teach them like repair and cleaning up their own messes. Like, this is so cool. Or like, let's look up a YouTube video on how the brain has this amygdala part of the brain. And look at that. We all have that part in our brain. And when we're in that part, we will like yell at people, get angry. And like, do you think anybody can learn when they're in that part of their brain? No. I mean, what's it like for you? I mean, I know when I'm like that. And so like kind of doing this like education with kids, just a fun like cartoon type exploration, or like sharing something even on your phone. Like if you follow people on your social media that are parenting experts and peaceful parent happy kids, there's like anytime there's a post on Instagram or Facebook, you can be like, oh, this is something really cool, let me tell you guys. And you're not lecturing anyone in the space, you're just getting curious about it out loud. And kids really love, I think kids of any age, it really empowers them. And then what ends up happening is the kids start parroting the things you're talking about in front of other people. Hey, that's not the way you're supposed to do it. Hey, this is what actually, this other thing that we talked about before. So it kind of becomes a new culture, right? And it's like education for everyone. And you're not saying I'm smarter than anyone. I'm exploring this too, and just kind of becomes this like way of discussing things, and eavesdropping content if other people are not open to listening directly. And it kind of reminds me of like that highly sensitive person that doesn't want you to say it directly to their face, but when you use that side door strategy, it lands a little bit differently because it doesn't feel like a personal attack. It's just getting curious about something really interesting about child development and the science of attachment and neuroplasticity and neural wiring, and which all of these topics aren't about your partner anyway. You're not saying you're a bad parent. You're saying, look at the science. And this is what peaceful parenting is. It's based on the science anyway, right? So I think it's a really easy way to kind of have ongoing conversations. They might take like a year, literally a year of you doing this in very gentle, soft, planting seeds ways, and just watch your partner transform. I've seen it in many, many cases. Yeah. Hang in there, Raul.
I love that.
Thank you.
So we are at the end of our time. Xenia, I see you have your hand up. I'm willing to stay and take one more question. We'll try and keep it short. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I have a short question about my daughter. She's 8 years old, and she has a great potential cognitive. And now she's in the primary school, and it is very easy for her to learn things. And the question I have is, I would like that she can speak my native language, but she has to learn it and to train it. And she already has some training, but I know that she has just capacities to do more. And now she is very young, she has time. And so I would like that she does more, but of course, she is not excited about it. And I don't know whether it's my problem because I had to learn a lot when I was a child. And actually, I'm very thankful to my parents for that because I really have a good life now, thanks to this work as a child. But I also don't want to damage our relationship because now it's not that she is, yes, I want to do it. And well, I don't know whether I find it important and whether I have to make some pressure or how I can do it maybe, or maybe I just have to relax myself.
If this is really important to you, I think it is a completely fine thing to ask your child to do. And then you have to give them as much support as necessary for them to meet your expectations, right? The way we do with any other expectation. So you can't expect her to put extra time in outside of school to learn this language that she isn't speaking at home and isn't speaking at school, as well as play the piano and learn soccer and right there, it's going to have to be your priority. I'm not saying she can't also do something else if she really wants to play soccer. I just mean you can't have lots of expectations, right? This is the expectation that you're hanging on to that's important to you. So if that's the case, you can then expect her, and you'll have to give her a way to do that, whether that's that, and it always will work better if you're involved. You know, if you say, oh, you're going to go to these classes to learn the language, you know, she feels like, oh, that's more school. Whereas if the two of you somehow are able to do it together, or you're taking an online class together, or you're seeing a tutor together or something, but in a way that you're part of it, and she's getting the affirmation, because the reason she's doing it is for you. She's getting the affirmation that you're excited about, oh, look, she figured out how to say this, and she's making all this progress in it. She will feel seen and appreciated if you're involved in it with her. Whereas if you're just sending her off to learn it, it becomes another chore that there's not as much gratification for doing it.
Yes, I actually I try to do it with her because it is about grammar. Yes, it's you have to learn it, and I know that we could do it together, and but she doesn't want, and I don't know how to motivate her. So I don't know whether I think maybe okay, shall I let her have this online training once a week? And that's enough. And now she's 8, and if I can do it 5 years more, that when she needs the language, maybe as adult, she will learn it by herself when she needs it. Yes, or maybe it's just my personal problem that I think it's important.
I think you're allowed to think it's important. You're allowed to. The question is, she's not going to think it's important. She has no reason to think it's important, right? Kids don't realize until they're adults, and then they're like, why didn't you teach me? Why I would have loved to have learned this language, right? So you're going to have to decide how much is enough. Is a once a week lesson online going to be sufficient? Maybe, for now, if you do it for another 5 years and you keep it up. And maybe you could do more than that. Maybe you could do the once a week lesson plus also do something else. I'm not sure what that something else would be, but something else that's a game you play in that language, or, reading, simple children's books in that language, that were for much younger children than her.
Yes, I read to her.
Yeah, you do. So she's
Yes.
having that experience as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's okay, yes, but I don't read every day. And well, I know that, yeah, my problem is I see the potential in her, but she doesn't want, and it hurts me because I think, or it's sad. Now she has time and resources. Yeah.
Yeah, potential's a funny thing. Humans like to follow their own lead to make the most of their potential. They like to follow their own passions. And in children, those passions arise and they pass away, and they get excited about something, and then it's gone and something new comes in. But that's how they become who they are, is by exploring those things. So,
Yes.
so she does have potential, I'm sure. And you think it should be used for the language. She
Yes.
might have different ideas.
Yeah, okay. No, thank you. I think, yes, it's important just to put the seed now in the ground. And yes, if she doesn't want, then I will release my grasp.
I love that you want to teach her your language and that you're working at it. And I suspect that she will be very glad about it someday. It's a tremendous gift. It's just that, as always, when we have an expectation for a child, we have to provide the support. So And it sounds like you're doing that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, good luck. So we have one pre-submitted question, which I'm going to do a very quick answer for, only because this question was pre-submitted last month and we didn't have time to get to it. And it's a question about lying. And I know most parents at some point deal with this. Often we deal with it when kids are younger, like, 4, 5, 6 is the big age of lying. This boy is 12 and he lies about, his mom says, everything. Um, and like, yeah, I did my homework. No, I didn't steal my sister's pocket money. Oops, yes, I did actually. Um, and mom says she tries to give him a safe environment so he doesn't feel the need to lie. But so far he's still lying. And in fact, he also, in this case, she's saying he stole his sister's money. But they did ask him to pay her back immediately, and he did. But they aren't sure that really set a sufficient limit. So I would say to say, I know now, by the way, he came clean on the money. They didn't confront him. So I would say, you made it safe for him to tell you the truth about the money. First he said he didn't do it, and then he actually came clean about it. So that is great that he was able to do that. And even though he paid her back, I'm not sure that's a sufficient repair because he ruptured trust between them. So in this case, I would have a conversation about, what made you feel like you should take your sister's money? You really wanted it. What did you want it for? You didn't see another way to get that money. Did you think about how she might react? Did you think about how she might feel? Those kinds of conversations, I think. I think it doesn't help to just say, that was dishonest, because that's meaningless to the kid. They need to hear, they need to reflect on the experience they had in order to then develop good judgment, basically. And the experience he had was he took her money and then confessed voluntarily. And I'm wondering also why he confessed. What? So when you decided then that you would tell her that you took it, or tell us that you took it, what made you tell us? And maybe it is that he realized that he had hurt his sister. Maybe that really got through to him. You don't say, this mom has not said anything else about her son. So I'm guessing that he might have some impulse control issues based on what I'm hearing here. Maybe not, but that a 12-year-old who's doing things like that, maybe that's, did you do your homework? Yeah. Oops, I didn't do it, maybe. So it may be that we're expecting something from him that he's still growing into in terms of being age appropriate. The homework thing, again, he may have just lied about it because he wanted to play his video game. He didn't want to do his homework. So again, exploring. I know you wish you had done your homework. You wish it was already complete, and time to turn that off and come do your homework, right? I'm not without mom, without you here to hear more about the specifics of what exactly happened. It's hard to know exactly what you could have said to him in that instance, but I think you want to make honesty feel safe and also worthwhile. Like everyone makes mistakes. What matters in our family is telling the truth so we can fix things together. And then when he does, because it sounds like in both of these cases, he came to you and said, "Oh yeah, I actually have homework," or I did take her money." And at that point, your reaction has to be warmly appreciative. It has to be, "Thank you for telling me. That took courage. I know that took courage to do." And when um, when you're exploring it with him, really empathizing with what drove him to do it. And I wonder, was there some part of you that knew this was a bad idea? So I think making it right, the repair, you asked specifically about the repair. Repaying it is not sufficient. We always make it right. That might include doing something kind for your sister. It might include, I don't know what, an apology, something. Not about, it isn't about shame, but it's about, I know I betrayed your trust and I'm not going to do that. And the way I'm going to not do it is by, whatever, reminding myself, blah, 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 so that I don't want to hurt you, right? That would be a repair that would actually rebuild the trust. So I would ask him, less focus on stopping lying and more focus on the repair when he's for something like this. I think if he actually made a repair like that, I think he would realize I actually don't want to hurt my sister and I'm even if her money's left out on her desk and I'm walking by, I'm not going to take it next time after going through this experience with her. So I'm hoping that's helpful. And if that doesn't quite get to the heart of what you're asking, let us know and we can address it more next time. So thank you everybody for coming to office hours, for these great questions, these great also contributions in supporting everybody. It's so having a community like this where there's so much wisdom and so much affirmation and respect and appreciation of the hard work that everybody's doing is really a gift. So please unmute yourselves and say goodbye to each other. And we'll see you next month.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.